You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Episode 11, Secrets. Written and read by Wendy Herman. I walked into the secure office without knocking, and with an unusual sense of urgency. The bastards had started without me. As the door opened, I caught bits and pieces of the conversation already taking place. 20 years, assigned to watcher. Moss's report, small arms, off the chart. Incredible, she has no idea, no memory, all these years. As I entered, the three men turned, ceasing their conversation. Trevor looked angry more than anything else to see me there. The other two, Agent Hart, who I knew to be a trustworthy and seasoned old dog, and Director Pixley both nodded a silent greeting. Hart handed some paperwork to the director, who tucked it under his arm. And here I thought I was 15 minutes early. Agent Ripley, Pixley greeted me. I have a 2:30, so we started right away. Douglas said he texted you. I nodded in frustration. Oh, he had texted me all right, 30 seconds before I had burst through the door, which I realized was becoming a habit with Trevor and me. I was still out of breath from sprinting to his office. Pixley was the kind of man who could decide on a whim to put any one of us on patrol duty at the local mall, just for fun, so I didn't quibble about the late text. He hated whiners. Douglas was just filling me in on the situation we have here, Pixley said. Was he? How reassuring. I remained silent, waiting for a hint that it was my turn to speak. Pixley continued. He says his wife is now an agent trainee, due to your manipulation of government policy and resources. He says what? Why I ever wanted to step in front of a bullet for this guy was beyond me. After glaring at Trevor, I responded in the calmest voice I could muster. Sir, I assure you, trainee Douglas, checked all the required boxes to get this far. Her security clearance even came through last week with no issues. Trevor was suddenly in my face, pointing a finger into my chest. No issues? You called a buddy at the State Department and her clearance was magically approved. Explain that, Agent Ripley. I guess we were no longer on a first-name basis. I could point a finger, too. You were trying to keep it from getting to the State Department. Explain that, Agent Douglas. His finger-pointing turned into outright shoving with his whole hand. I was trying to save her from being humiliated when she fails, because I love her. If you loved her, you'd let her do this. Someone has to support her. This stopped him in his tracks for a second while he gathered his thoughts. How could he think she would fail? It just didn't make sense to me. Just then, Director Pixley stepped between us and pointed to 2 chairs. We sat reluctantly, still fuming at each other. Pixley perched himself on the edge of Trevor's desk and sighed like a disappointed father. I don't know what kind of triangle you boys have going here, but I don't like it. He scratched his bald head. Now, Agent Douglas, if your wife being a trainee and possibly an agent is going to affect your ability to do your job, both of you, he pointed at each of us accusingly, then normally I wouldn't see any other option but to cut her FBI career short, right here and now. I started to protest, but he cut me off. However, in light of the information I've learned today, I think it might be in the FBI's best interest to keep Mrs. Douglas under close surveillance. And what better way than to make her an agent? Information? What information? What exactly had they been talking about before I entered the room? It got even more confusing when Trevor spoke up. Director, you can't be serious. I live with her. What better surveillance is there than that? I've been on this assignment for almost 20... Yes, but you're here all day, aren't you? Working as a full-time agent all this time, as if you didn't have a Priority 1 assignment at home. You should have briefed me on this last year when I took this position and became your boss. Seems to me you haven't been doing your job. Director Pixley folded his arms across his chest and scrutinized Trevor with superior eyes. Trevor was stunned. Nothing offended him more than being told he wasn't succeeding in something, and even my total confusion at the whole conversation couldn't squelch my satisfaction of watching him being knocked off his throne. I grinned for a second until I realized I was being left out of something. Something big. Sir, what information are you referring to? I demanded. He didn't seem concerned with my tone, although it bordered on insubordination. Agent Ripley, since you weren't privy to it when it was prudent, I don't have the authorization to bring you into the loop. I'm sorry. And he did seem sincerely sorry he couldn't tell me. Okay, what the hell is going on? Sir, I don't understand, I stammered, but he stood and put his hand up to stop me. That's all the time I have, gentlemen. See to it trainee Douglas makes it through the program as quickly as possible. I want her a full-fledged agent within 3 months. And with that, Pixley abruptly walked toward the door. He stopped a few feet from the exit and turned to us. You two are going to have to leave your differences in your pants, or I'll have you both reassigned to Antarctica. Together. Just the two of you. Do I make myself clear? Although I was sure we didn't have an FBI office anywhere in Antarctica, I didn't doubt he could make that happen. We both nodded vehemently. Pixley opened the door and was gone, Hart following close behind. I turned to Trevor. His face was red and his eyes furious. The fact that we'd had a major falling out no longer mattered. I needed answers, and clearly he had them. But we both needed to calm down first. Trevor, I said, my voice even. What the hell is going on? He closed his eyes and released a heavy sigh. When he opened them, his anger seemed to have faded, giving way to sadness. I didn't push him to answer me right away. He walked over to the big leather chair behind his desk and slowly sat. Then he looked up at me and smiled. Rip, he began, measuring every word. This was never supposed to happen. What was? Freya wanting to join the FBI. Shit. He took a deep breath and blew it out like he was in pain. Becoming an agent. I sat down on one of the chairs in front of his desk and let him regain his composure. Maybe if I didn't say a word, he would accidentally tell me everything. I could dream. You know, I blame you for all this, he said, but chuckled lightly under his breath. Me? Still, I didn't respond. Elaborate, Trevor. That's it. Keep talking. If you hadn't been around all these years, making it sound so exciting to be an FBI agent and making her remember. Remember what? I asked, seriously considering the possibility that I had walked through a dimensional crack and straight into Bizarro world. He shook his head as if to sort out the thoughts rolling around in it. You brought up that stupid jobs fair back in college, when she applied to the FBI, he reminded me. So you're blaming me for something that's been going on for 20 years, because I brought up a long-forgotten dream of hers just a few weeks ago? She was never supposed to remember any of it. The procedure was tricky, but it should have been permanent amnesia, he uttered barely above a whisper. I think he'd forgotten I was there. Trevor, what are you talking about? I asked. I've known Freya longer than you have. She's never had amnesia. Trevor! I pounded my fist on his desk, and he snapped out of his hypnosis, looking at me with renewed intensity, almost fear. Rip, if anything happens to Freya and me, you have to take care of the boys. He grabbed my wrist and squeezed so hard my fingers went numb for a second. Trevor, tell me what's going on. Is Freya in danger? Are you in danger? The boys? Please tell me. He grabbed both my wrists. Promise me. Of course, Trevor. Jesus! I'm their godfather. I won't let anything happen to them. I promise. I was really freaking out now. I had come in here not 10 minutes ago pissed at Trevor, and absolutely positive I was right about, well, everything. All of a sudden, I wasn't sure I was even on the right planet. I didn't even know who the hell this guy was sitting across from me, and I had once known him better than I knew myself. Trevor was holding his head in his hands now, muttering to himself. He had really lost it. I knew I wasn't going to get anything else out of him, at least not today. Whatever was going on was really messing with his head, and for a split second, I was thankful that I was clueless. What do I do now? I stood to leave Trevor to his breakdown when it hit me like a lightning bolt. I was so dizzy I had to sit back down. There were two things I did know. The first, thanks to Director Pixley, was that Freya was going to be an FBI agent, and sooner than I or even she ever dreamed. Second, thanks to Trevor's reaction, I suddenly knew I had to protect her. In fact, the energy that coursed through my veins confirmed that this was my new mission, assigned or not. I didn't know why or from what, but that didn't matter. I had to protect the woman I love.
You're listening to Big World Network.